Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? So I do want to say that I was going to post more of Carlos Castaneda, but this morning, well, late last night, early in the morning, Morgan, who was sleeping, had a very, she scared me, very much so, and I'm still watching her, but she seems a little bit better now. She's old. She'll be 17 on my birthday. If she makes it, we'll see. But I don't have enough money to go to a vet, and she would need a sonogram and a CAT scan to see what was going on. Don't have it. So I'm going to try, hopefully tomorrow, to find a holistic solution for her at the pet store. So my day was watching my neighbor's dog and watching her like a hawk. Yeah. So I didn't get to do what I wanted to do today, but that's okay. It is what it is. She is my purr baby. She's everything to me. But I mean, we all go. I hope I'll make her into a beautiful human being. So tonight, I told you I was going to do Urantia. At least if I'm going to do a read, I'm going to do something. Because I know a lot of people can't listen right away to any of the books. So I like to space them out a little bit. So like next time I'll do a wasp and finish those chapters. Tomorrow I hope to catch up on everything that I was supposed to do. I also missed some oracle card readings. Yeah, I have T-Rex on my shirt. So yeah, that was my day. It happens. Not fun at all. And before I get into the book, if you can like, if you can subscribe, and share it with care, I would love that. Also, if things in the world seem like there's something, but it's really not, do not place your fear into things that, if you're watching the Black Cube, you're being lied to. So shut it off. Also, things might go down in certain parts of the world, so make sure you back up your devices. Save and store things off your computer. Just an FYI. But really do it in the next few days. Getting that feeling that things might start escalating a lot more than we would like. Also, stock up on food if you haven't done so already. And I'm not just talking about like, because we're gonna get bad weather again next week, but in terms of non-perishables, just to be on the safe side. Water, safe side. It's my duty. So today I'm going to read the attributes of God. God's everywhereness is the first part. But we're going to read the attributes of God. This is from the Urantia book. God is everywhere present. The universal Father rules the circle of eternity, but he rules in the local universes in the persons of his paradise creator sons, even as he bestows life through these sons. God has given us eternal life, and this life is in his sons. These creator sons of God are the personal expression of himself in the sectors of time and to the children of the whirling planets of the evolving universes of space. The highly personalized sons of God are clearly discernible by the lower orders of created intelligences, and so do they compensate for the invisibility of the infinite and therefore less discernible Father. The paradise creator sons of the universal Father are a revelation of an otherwise invisible being, invisible because of the absoluteness and infinity inherent in the circle of eternity and in the personalities of the paradise deities. Creatorship is hardly an attribute of God. It is rather the aggregate of his acting nature. And this universal function of creatorship is eternally manifested as it is conditioned and controlled by all the coordinated attributes of the infinite and divine reality of the first source and center. We sincerely doubt whether any one characteristic of the divine nature can be regarded as being anteceded. Yeah, that word's not going to be said properly. To the others. But if such were the case, then the creatorship nature of deity would take precedence over all other natures, activities, and attributes. And the creatorship of deity culminates in the universal truth of the fatherhood of God. Buckle up. Sorry, guys. God's everywhereness. The ability of the universal Father to be everywhere present and at the same time constitutes his omnipresence. God alone can be in two places, in numberless places at the same time. God is simultaneously present in heaven above and on earth beneath. As above, so below. As the psalmist explained, psalmist? Psalmist. Whither shall I go from your spirit? Or whither shall I flee from your presence? I am God at hand as well as afar off, says the Lord. Do not I fill heaven and earth? The universal Father is all the time present in all parts and in all hearts of his far-flung creation. He is the fullness of him who fills all and in all, and who works all in all. And further, the concept of his personality is such that the heaven universe and heaven of heavens, universe and universes, cannot contain him. It is literally true that God is all and in all, but even that is not all of God. The infinite can be finally revealed only in infinity. The cause can never be fully comprehended by an analysis of efforts. The living God is immeasurably greater than the sum total of the creation that has come into being as a result of the creative acts of his unfettered free will. God is revealed throughout the cosmos, but the cosmos can never contain or encompass the entirety of the infinity of God. It's like a mic drop moment. And we're all parts of fractalizations of that. And I believe that. I really do. Now, question is, do I move Ethan off my legs because they're going numb? Or do I let a sleeping kitty sleep? I'll be back. That's moving my legs. The Father's presence unceasingly patrols the master universe. He's going forth. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit to the ends of it, and there is nothing hidden from the light thereof. The creature not only exists in God, but God also lives in the creature. See? We know we dwell in him because he lives in us. He has given us his spirit. The gift from the Paradise Father is man's inseparable companion. He is the ever-present and all-pervading God. The spirit of the everlasting Father is concealed in the mind of every mortal child. Man goes forth searching for a friend, while that very friend lives within his own heart. The true God is not afar off. He is a part of us. His spirit speaks from within us. The Father lives in the child. God is always with us. He is the guiding spirit of eternal destiny. I've been saying this all along. And I believe it. When Yeshua was sent on a mission to be incarnated on earth, what do you think his mission was? To teach the law of one. Love, light, light, love. But going within. Don't really see too many books that describe it as going within, beyond the spiritual stuff, and asking your own self, going to your gut instincts and asking, this doesn't feel right to me. Hey, you, what's going on? All right. Meditating. Why do you think that was edited out of the original scrolls and not relayed on paper? They didn't want you to know that God is you. You are a fractal of God. All of us are. Dwells within. Why is that important? Because you have all the answers. You just have to go inside. If you have an unblocked heart, it's easy to access. But if you bog your heart down and you're not doing unconditional love, if you're not learning about that in the light and taking care of yourself, and you judge others, again, very human thing to do. And yes, there's sometimes you do have to judge, but then you have to forgive. But I've been saying this because God, we are all God. And that's why our avatars have been suppressed. Remember, I get that. Oh, I put it somewhere. that juicy book we're going to tackle. Truly of the human race has it been said, you are of God, because he who dwells in love dwells in God, and God in him. Even in wrongdoing, you torment the indwelling gift of God. For the thought adjuster must needs go through the consequences of evil thinking with the human mind of its incarceration. The omnipresence of God is in reality a part of his infinite nature. Space constitutes no barrier to deity. God is in perfection and without limitation, discernibly present only on paradise and in the central universe. He is not thus observably present in the creations encircling Harvona, for God has limited his direct and actual presence in recognition of the sovereignty and the divine prerogatives of the coordinate creators and rulers of the universes of time and space. Hence, must the concept of the divine presence allow for a wide range of both mode and channel of manifestation, embracing the present circuits of the eternal Son, the infinite Spirit, and the Isle of Paradise. Nor is it always possible to distinguish between the presence of the Universal Father and the actions of his eternal coordinates and agencies. So perfectly do they fulfill all the infinite requirements of his unchanging purpose. But not so with the personality circuit and the adjusters here. God acts uniquely, directly, and exclusively. The universal controller is potentially present in the gravity circuits of the Isle of Paradise, in all parts of the universe at all times, and in the same degree, in accordance with the mass, in response to the physical demands for this presence, and because of the inherent nature of all creation, which causes all things to adhere and consist in him. Likewise, is the first source and center potentially present in the unqualified absolute, the repository of the uncreated universes of the eternal future. God thus potentially pervades the physical universes of the past, present, and future. He is the primordial foundation of the coherence of the so-called material creation. This non-spiritual deity, potential, becomes actual here and there throughout the level of physical existences by the inexplicable intrusion of some one of his exclusive agencies upon the stage of universe action. The mind presence of God is correlated with the absolute mind of the conjoint actor. There's the infinite spirit, but in the finite creations, it is better discerned in that everywhere functioning of the cosmic mind of the paradise master spirits. Just as the first source and center is potentially present in the mind circuits of the conjunct actor, so he potentially present in the tensions of the universal absolute. But mind of the human order is bestowal of the daughters of the conjoint actor, the divine ministers of the evolving universes. The everywhere present spirit of the universal Father is coordinated with the function of the universe spirit presence of the eternal Son and the everlasting divine potential of the deity absolute. but neither the spiritual activity of the eternal Son and his paradise sons, nor the mind bestowals of the infinite Spirit seem to exclude the direct action of the thought adjusters, the indwelling fragments of God in the hearts of his creature children. Concerning God's presence in a planet, system, constellation, or a universe, the degree of such presence in any creational unit is a measure of the degree of the evolving presence of the Supreme Being. It is determined by the en masse recognition of God and the loyalty to him on the part of the vast universe organization, running down to the systems and planets themselves. Therefore, it is sometimes with the hope of conserving and safeguarding these phases of God's precious presence that, when some planets or even systems have plunged far into spiritual darkness, they are in a certain sense quarantined. We're going to get to that in a minute. Or partially isolated from the intercourse with the larger units of creation. And all this, as it operates on Urantia, is a spiritually defensive reaction of the majority of the worlds to save themselves as far as possible from suffering the isolation consequences of the alienating acts of the headstrong, wicked, and rebel. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. It's my teeth. Minority. Okay. So I put glue up there. It's not holding, and certain words I feel like shifting down, and you don't need to see what's underneath that. It's bad. I look like a crackhead. FYI. Okay. Earth has been under quarantine since its inception. Quarantine meaning that we cannot be infiltrated. Law of One goes into that quite well. Really well. The Crusaders from Orion, aka the Draco, and the Greys infiltrated through dimensional windows inside the firmament. They and the Anunnaki, believe it or not, came from another dimension, got thrown into this system, and wreaked havoc. It's a big concept, I know, but Earth has been in quarantine. Quarantine still exists today on planet Earth. There's a catch, though. God intervened. And this is why Spirit syncs. Why I didn't read this the other day is because God synced me to do it today. Why? We're coming to a point in our Earth history where these little SOBs, bye-bye. And it's almost over. Where the last of these little shits are being sent back into another dimension where they belonged in the first place. They created havoc, not just on Earth, but in many different systems and many different places. So we're not alone. We've been infiltrated, and so has many other civilizations, no matter what they look like, humanoid or not. Okay. God intervened because we're one of the greatest experiments to happen. With the polarity, not all reptilians are bad, not all grays are bad, and not all Anunnaki are bad. And they had this battle here on the planet. And we were an end result. Okay. Though in the divine scheme, we needed this to happen. We needed to learn and discern good from bad, bad from good. It's a soul growth. It gives God, Creator, a perspective, and all of the government officials in the hierarchy all the way up to the infinite one, okay, gives them perspective on how we react, who's still keeping love in their hearts, who is forgiving. And no, we're not perfect, and Creator knows that, because creators experience it as we're going through, right? It's like the NSA taking all the information and like siphoning it out and like storing it. Same concept. Same thing. Earth is about to end its quarantine very soon. I want to say within the next 5 years. I think once we find out, well, I know about it. Now I'm going to impart some very fun stuff about our galactic future. Whether we're in a dome or out of a dome, it doesn't matter if you want to believe in the firmament or not. There is land beyond. But there's also dimensions that you can jump into. And you need special craft for that. And you also need to defend the galaxy. How do you do that? Motherships. What's being built right now? Motherships. Fleets. And the Earth will be protected by all the countries under the Artemis Accord. The United States is going to head that accord. But no one country that's signed has any pull or weight on any of it, because it's all dealt with the councils that are above us. Council of Nine, the Cedars, the Galactic Federation of Worlds. They exist. They're all of Creator. They're higher dimensions. Some people can see them in the night sky. They're here. They too got in those windows. But many of them had to close some things. But off on my alien fun tangent, but we really are in quarantine. Sorry, Earth. We are the greatest experiment in our universe, at least, for how far humanity has come through all its trials and tribulations and civilization downfalls. We always seem to manage to get back up on our feet and advance to the best of our abilities without being interfered with. But we've been interfered with so bad this lifetime, that you're watching this video right now, that God had to intervene. That's why you hear certain people say it's biblical. But it's not literally the end of the world. It's the end of the old way of doing things. It's ushering out the garbage and putting in the new. It's kind of like living like the Amish live, being able to build as a community, feed each other as a community, and be there for one another, your brother, your sister, your neighbor. In many ways, they have it right. They're self-sufficient. They don't need electricity, but they can use it, the modern day ones, the modernized ones at least. But when the world collapses, a lot of people are going to be looking to them because they already know the old technology that they have kept going on and on and on. Whereas, ask any one of the kids that are in high school now how to make a shirt, how to loom, when is a good time to sow certain seeds. Some might know. I'm not saying all the kids are, unaware, but it's the generation. We're gonna have the technology, but we might have to go back Amish for a quick minute. But I just wanted to, I'm sorry I went off on a tangent, but I think it's very important to understand when reading this, you have to put it into the context of Earth now. Like everything that I'm reading, it's about now. It's not about when this was written all the way back when, a wasp all the way back when. This is now relevant. Okay. And not that anything isn't relevant, but it's time sensitive information. How about that? While the Father apparently encircles all his sons and all personalities, his influence in them is limited by the remotelessness of their origin from the second and third persons of the deity, and the augmented as their destiny attainment near such levels. So I'm thinking that when they're talking about persons of deity, it's the density, like second density, like animals are second density, we're third, well, now fourth, sub-octave of fourth. The fact of God's presence in creature minds is determined by whether or not they are indwelt by father fragments, such as the mystery monitors, but his effective presence is determined by the degree of cooperation accorded these indwelling adjusters by the minds of their sovereign. I can't make this up. The fluctuations of the Father's presence are not due to the changeableness of God. The Father does not retire in seclusion because he has been slighted, and his affections are not alienated because of the creature's wrongdoing. Rather, having been endowed with the power of choice concerning himself, his children, in the exercise of that choice, directly determine the degree and limitations of the Father's divine influence in their own hearts and souls. So I don't need to go to a temple, to go to a church, to go to a mosque to find God. I've been in those places for weddings, for bat mitzvahs, never been to a mosque. I'm sure it's beautiful. But I'm a spiritual person who's always known the existence of Creator, who's walked my own path in the understanding that certain modalities have influenced my life. Hence the Norse culture really has influenced my being, because that is the particular envoy portion of me. And everybody's different. Like I said, I am not a Bible scholar. But I could tell you right now, Native Americans as well. Carlos Castaneda, it's there. It's not forced on you. Because no matter the means, when it happens, it happens. Organically and naturally. And for some, that's what he wants to experience. The Father has freely bestowed himself upon us without limit and without favor. He is no respecter of persons, planets, systems, or universes. In the sectors of time, he confers differential honor only on the paradise personalities of God, the sevenfold, the coordinate creatures of the finite universes. Make sure she's okay. My poor little girl. God's infinite power. All the universes know that the Lord God omnipresent reigns. The affairs of this world and other worlds are divinely supervised. He does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. It is eternally true, there is no power but of God. Within the bounds of that which is consistent with the divine nature, it is literally true that with God all things are possible. The long, drawn-out evolutionary process of peoples, planets, and universes are under the perfect control of the universe creators and the administrators and unfold in accordance with the eternal purpose of the universal Father, proceeding in harmony and order and in keeping with the all-wise plan of God. There is only one lawgiver. He upholds the worlds in space and swings the universes around the endless circle of the eternal circuit. All true, but plan of God. If you know, you know. Of all the divine attributes, his omnipresence, especially as it prevails in the material universe, is the best understood. Viewed as an unspiritual phenomenon, henceable truth that the first source and creator, source and center, is the primal cause of the universal physical phenomenon of all space. First, this divine activity, all physical energy and other material manifestations are derived. Light, there is light without heat. Is another of the non-spiritual manifestations of the deities. And there is still another form of non-spiritual energy, which is virtually unknown on Urantia. It is as yet unrecognized. Why these books flow so good together, and yet I bet these people did not know each other. Social memory complex power. God controls all power. He has made a way for the lightning. He has ordained the circuits of all energy. He has decreed the time and manner of manifestation of all forms of energy matter. and all these things are held forever in his everlasting grasp, in the gravitational control centering on neither paradise. The light and the energy of the eternal God does swing on forever around his majestic circuit, the endless but orderly procession of the starry hosts composing the universe of universes. All creation circles eternally around the paradise personality center of all things and all beings. Sacred geometry. The omnipresence of the Father pertains to everywhere dominance of the absolute level, whereon the three energies, material, vital, and spiritual, are indistinguishable in close proximity to him. The source of all things, creature mind being neither paradise Montoa nor paradise spirit, is not directly responsive to the universal Father. God adjusts with the mind of imperfection with Urantia mortals through the thought adjusters. The universal Father is not a transient force, a shifting power, or a fluctuating energy. The power and wisdom of the Father are wholly adequate to cope with any and all universe exigencies. As the emergencies of human experience arise, he has foreseen them all, and therefore he does not react to the affairs of the universe in a detached way, but rather in accordance with the dictates of eternal wisdom and in consonance with the mandates of infinite judgment. Regardless of appearances, the power of God is not functioning in the universe as a blind force. Situations do arise in which it appears that the emergency rulings have been made, that the natural laws have been suspended, that misadaptations have been recognized, and that an effort is being made to rectify the situation. But such is not the case, and that an effort is being made. Such concepts of God have their origin in the limited range of your viewpoint, in the finiteness of your comprehension, and in the circumscribed scope of your survey. Such misunderstandings of God is due to the profound ignorance you enjoy regarding the existence of the higher laws of the realm, the magnitude of the Father's character, the infinity of his attributes, and the fact of his free willness. And yet he's acting now. He wants us to stop this looped cycle of 75,000 years of being stuck in the same density and dimension because of infiltrators. And finally, many of us will be harvested to 4. If you're not already there already, but we're not in a total 4. We just merged into 4. We still got some levels to go until we all get to 4th in its fullest, in my opinion. The planetary creatures of God's spirit indwelling, scattered hither and yon throughout the universe of space, are so nearly infinite in number and order. Their intellects are so diverse. Their minds are so limited and sometimes so gross. Their vision is so curtailed and localized that it is almost impossible to formulate generalizations of law adequately expressive of the Father's infinite attributes, and at the same time to any degree comprehensible to these created intelligences. Therefore, to you, the creature, many of the acts of the all-powerful Creator seem to be arbitrary, detached, and not infrequently heartless and cruel. But again, I assure you that this is not true. God's doings are all purposeful, intelligent, wise, kind, eternally considerate of the best good, not always of an individual being, an individual race, or an individual planet, or even an individual universe. But they are for the welfare and best good of all concerned, from the lowest to the highest. In the epochs of time, the welfare of the part may sometimes appear to differ from welfare of the whole in the circle of eternity. Such apparent differences are non-existent. We are all a part of the family of God, and we must therefore sometimes share in the family discipline. Many of the acts of God which so disturb and confuse us are the result of the decisions and final rulings of all wisdom, empowering and conjoint actor to execute the choosing of the infallible will of the infinite mind, to enforce the decisions of the personality of perfection, whose survey, vision, and solitude embrace the highest and eternal welfare of all his vast and far-flung creation. Thus, it is that you detach, sectional, finite, gross, and highly materialistic viewpoint and the limitations inherent in the nature of your being constitute such a handicap that you're unable to see, comprehend, or know the wisdom and kindness of many of the divine acts, which to you seem fraught with such crushing cruelty, and which seem to be characterized by such utter indifference to the comfort and welfare, to the planetary happiness and personal prosperity of your fellow creatures. It is because of the limits of human vision. It is because of your circumscribed understandings of finite comprehension that you misunderstand the motives and pervert the purposes of God. But many things occur on the evolutionary worlds, which are not the personal doings of the universal Father. See? The divine omnipresence is perfectly coordinated with other attributes of the personality of God. The power of God is ordinarily only limited in its universe spiritual manifestation by three conditions or situations: by the nature of God, especially by his infinite love, by truth, beauty, and goodness; by the will of God, by his mercy, ministry, and fatherly relationship with the personalities of the universe; by the law of God, by the righteousness and justice of the eternal paradise Trinity. God is unlimited in power, divine in nature, and final in will, infinite in the attributes, eternal to wisdom, and absolute in reality. But all of these characteristics of the universal Father are unified in deity and universality, expressed in the paradise Trinity and in the divine sons of the Trinity. Otherwise, outside of the paradise and central universe of Harvona, everything pertaining to God is limited by the evolutionary presence of the Supreme, conditioned by the ever eventuating presence of the ultimate, and coordinated by three existential attributes: deity, universal, and unqualified. And God's presence is thus limited because such is the will of God. Dum dum dum. God's universal knowledge. God knows all things. The divine mind is conscious of and conversant with the thought of all creation. His knowledge of events is universal and perfect. The divine entities going out from him are part of him. He who balances the clouds is also perfect in knowledge. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. Said your great teacher of the insignificant sparrow, one of them shall not fall to the ground without my Father's knowledge. And also, the very hairs of your head are numbered. He tells the number of the stars. He calls them all by their names. The universal Father is the only personality in all the universe who does actually know the number of the stars and planets of space. All the worlds of every universe are constantly within the consciousness of God. He also says, I have surely seen the affliction of my people. I have learned their cry, and I know their sorrows. For the Lord looks from heaven. He beholds all the sons of men. From the place of his habitation, he looks upon all the inhabitants of the earth. Every creature child may truly say, he knows the way I take, and when he has tired me, I shall come forth as gold. God knows our down sittings and our uprisings. He understands our thoughts afar off and is acquainted with all our ways. All things are naked and open to the eyes of him, with whom we have to do. And it should be a real comfort to every human being to understand that he knows your frame. He remembers that you are dust. Jesus, speaking of the living God, said, your Father knows what you have need of, even before you ask him. Morgan's acting really silly again. God is possessed of unlimited power to know all things. His consciousness is universal. His personal circuit encompasses all personalities, and his knowledge of even the lowly creatures is supplemented indirectly through the descending series of divine sons, and directly through the indwelling thought adjusters. And furthermore, the infinite spirit is all the time, everywhere present. We are not wholly certain as to whether or not God chooses to foreknow events of sin. But even if God should foreknow the free will acts of his children, such foreknowledge does not in the least abrogate their freedom. One thing is certain, God is never subjected to surprise. Omnipotence does not imply the power to do the not doable, the ungodlike act. Neither does omnipresence imply the knowing of the unknowable, but such statements can hardly be made comprehensible to the finite mind, and the creature can hardly understand the range and limitations of the will of the Creator. Someone once had rubs. Say hi. I had a very rough day, guys. I had a rough day in my kitty life. I'm an old lady. I'm cranky. And I need my mommy. God's limitlessness. The successive bestowal of himself upon the universes as they are brought into being in no wise lessens the potential of power or the store of wisdom as they continue to reside and repose in the central personality of deity. In potential of force, wisdom, and love, the Father has never lessened aught of his possession, nor become divested of any attribute of his glorious personality as a result of the unstinted bestowal of himself upon the paradise sons, upon his subordinate creations, and upon the manifold creatures thereof. The creation of every new universe calls for a new adjustment of gravity, but even if creation should become indefinitely eternal, even to infinitely, so that eventually the material creation would exist without limitations, still the power of control and coordination reposing in the Isle of Paradise would be found and equal to and adequate for the mastery, control, and coordination of such an infinite universe, and the subsequent to this bestowal of limitless force and power upon boundless universe, the infinite would still be surcharged with the same degree of force and energy. The unqualified absolute would still be undiminished. God would still possess the same infinite potential, just as if force, energy, and power had never been poured forth for the endowment of universe upon universe. And so with wisdom, the fact that mind is so freely distributed to the thinking of the realms in no such wise impoverishments, the central source of divine wisdom. As universes multiply and beings of the realms increase in number to the limits of comprehension, if mind continues without end to be bestowed upon these beings of high and low estate, still will God's central personality continue to embrace the same eternal, infinite, and all-wise mind. The fact that he sends forth spirit messengers from himself to indwell the men and women of your world and other worlds in no wise lessens his ability to function as divine and all-powerful spirit personality. And there is absolutely no limits to the extent or number of such spirit monitors, which he can and may send out. Spirit guides. This giving of himself to his creatures creates a boundless, almost inconceivable future possibility of progressive and successive existences for these divinely endowed mortals, and thus prodigal distribution of himself as these ministering spirit entities in no manner diminishes the wisdom and perfection of truth and knowledge, which repose in the person of the all-wise, all-knowing, and all-powerful Father, ascended masters. To the mortals of time there is a future, but God inhabits eternity. Even though I hail from near the very abiding place of deity, I cannot presume to speak with perfection of understanding concerning the infinity of many of the divine attributes. Infinity of mind alone can fully comprehend infinity of existence and eternal of action. Mortal men cannot possibly know the infinitude of the Heavenly Father. Finite mind cannot think through such an absolute truth or fact. But this is the same finite human being can actually feel, literally experience the full and undiminished impact of such an infinite Father's love, all in caps. Such a love can be truly experienced, albeit while quality of experience is unlimited. Quantity of such an experience is strictly limited by the human capacity for spiritual receptivity and by the associated capacity to love the Father in return. Finite appreciation of infinite qualities far transcends the logically limited capacities of the creature because of the fact that mortal man is made in the image of God, and their lives within him a fragment of infinity. Therefore, men's nearest and dearest approach to God is by and through love. For God is love, and all such a unique relationship is an actual experience in cosmic sociology, the creator-creature relationship, the father-child affection. Hang on, guys. Okay, I'm going to finish this off, the chapter, because it's so good. The Father's supreme rule. In his contact with the post-Harvona creations, the Universal Father does not exercise his infinite power and final authority by direct transmittal, but rather through his sons and their subordinate personalities, And God does all this of his own free will. Any and all powers delegated if occasion should arise, if it should become the choice of the divine mind, could be exercised direct. But as a rule, such action only takes place as a result of the failure of the delegated personality to fulfill the divine trust. At such a time, and in the face of such default, and within the limits of the reservation and divine power and potential, the Father does act independently and in accordance with the mandates of his own choice. And that choice is always one of unfailing perfection and infinite wisdom. The Father rules through his sons, on down through the universe organization. There is an unbroken chain of rulers, ending with the planetary princes who direct the destinies of the evolutionary spheres of the Father's vast domains. It is no mere poetic expression that exclaims, "The earth is the Lord's, and most fullness thereof. He removes kings and sets up kings. The Most High's rule in the kingdoms of men. In the affairs of men's hearts, the universal Father may not always have his way, but in the conduct and destiny of a planet, the divine plan prevails. Eternal purpose of wisdom and love triumphs." Said Jesus, "My Father who gave them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand." As you glimpse the manifold workings and view the staggering immensity of God's will-nigh limitless creation, you may falter in your concept of his primacy, but you shall not fail to accept him as securely and everlastingly enthroned at the paradise center of all things, and as the beneficent Father of all intelligent beings. There is but one God and Father of all, who is above all and in all, and he is before all things, and in him all things consistent. The uncertainties of life and the vicissitudes of existence do not in any manner contradict the concept of the universal sovereignty of God. All evolutionary creature life is beset by certain inevitables. Consider the following. Is courage, strength of character desirable? Then must man be reared in an environment which necessitates grappling with hardships and reacting to disappointments. Is altruism, service of one's fellows, desirable? Then must life experience provide for encountering situations of social inequity? Is hope, the grandeur of trust, desirable? Then human existence must constantly be confronted with insecurities and recurrent uncertainties. Is faith, the supreme assertion of human thought, desirable? Then must the mind of man find itself in the troublesome predicament where it ever knows less than it can believe. Is the love of truth and the willingness to go wherever it leads, desirable? Then must man grow up in a world where error is present and falsehood always possible. Is idealism, the approaching concept of the divine, desirable? Then must man struggle in an environment of relative goodness and beauty, surrounding stimulative of the irrepressible reach for better things. Is loyalty, devotion to highest duty, desirable? Then must men carry on amid the possibilities of betrayal and desertion. The valor of devotion to duty consists in the implied danger of default. Is unselfishness, the spirit of forgetfulness, desirable. Then must mortal men live face to face with the incessant clamoring of an inescapable self for recognition and honor. Men cannot dramatically choose the divine life if there were no self-life to forsake. Man could never lay saving hold on righteousness if there were no potential evil to exalt and differentiate the good by contrast. Is pleasure, the satisfaction of happiness, desirable? Then must man live in the world where the alternative of pain and the likelihood of suffering are ever-present experimental possibilities. Throughout the universe, every unit is regarded as a part of the whole. Survival of the part is dependent on cooperation with the plan and purpose of the will. The only evolutionary world without error, the possibility of unwise judgment, would be a world without free intelligence. In the Harvona universe, there are billion perfect worlds with their perfect inhabitants, but evolving man must be fallible if he is to be free. Free and inexperienced intelligence cannot possibly at first be uniformly wise. The possibility of mistaken judgment becomes sin only when the human will consciously endures and knowingly embraces a deliberate immoral judgment. Sounds like our world, doesn't it? The full appreciation of truth, beauty, and goodness is inherent in the perfection of the divine universe. The inhabitants of the Harvona worlds do not require the potential of relative value levels as a choice stimulus. Such perfect beings are able to identify and choose the good in the absence of the contrastive and thought-compelling moral situations. But all such perfect beings are in moral nature and spiritual status, what they are by virtue of the fact of existence. They have experimentally earned advancement only within their inherent status. Mortal man earns even his status as an ascension candidate by his own faith and hope. Well, that answers a lot. Everything divine which the human mind grasps and the human soul acquires is an experimental attainment. It is a reality of personal experience and therefore a unique possession, in contrast to the inherent goodness and righteousness of an inerrant personalities of Harvona. The creatures of Harvona are naturally brave, but they are not courageous in the human sense. They are innately kind and considerate, but hardly altruistic in the human way. They are expectant of a pleasant future, but not hopeful in the exquisite manner of the trusting mortal of the uncertain evolutionary spheres. They have faith in stability of the universe, but they are utter strangers to the saving faith whereby mortal man climbs from the status of an animal up to the portals of paradise. They love the truth, but they know nothing of its soul-saving qualities. They are idealistic, but they were born that way. They are wholly ignorant and of the ecstasy of becoming such an exhilarating choice. They are loyal, but they have never experienced the thrill of wholehearted and intelligent devotion to duty in the face of temptation to default. They are unselfish, but they never gained such levels of experience by the magnificent conquest of a belligerent self. They enjoy pleasure, but they do not comprehend the sweetness of the pleasure escape from pain potential. And lastly, the Father's primacy. With divine selflessness, consummate generosity, the universal Father relinquishes authority and delegates power, but he is still primal. His hand is on the mighty lever of the circumstances of the universal realms. He has reserved all final decisions and erring, wields the all-powerful veto scepter of eternal purpose with unchangeable authority over the welfare and destiny of the outstretched, whirling, and ever-circling creation. Just make it bad. The sovereignty of God is unlimited. It is the fundamental fact of all creation. The universe was not inevitable. The universe is not an accident, neither is it self-existence. The universe is a work of creation and is therefore wholly subject to the will of the creator. The universe is a work of creation and is therefore wholly subject to the will of the creator. The will of God is divine truth. Living love, therefore, are the perfecting creations of the evolutionary universes characterized by goodness, nearness to divinity, by potential evil, remoteness from divinity. All religious philosophy sooner or later arrives at the concept of unified universal rule of one God. The universe causes cannot be lower than universe effects. The source of the streams of the universe life and of the cosmic mind must be above the levels of their manifestation. The human mind cannot be consistently explained in terms of the lower orders of existence. Man's mind can be truly comprehended only by recognizing the reality of higher orders of thought and purposeful will. Man as a mortal being is inexplicable unless the reality of the universal Father is acknowledged. The mechanistic philosopher professes to reject the idea of universal and sovereign will, the very sovereign will whose activity in the elaboration of universe laws he so deeply reverences. I'll be right back. What unintended homage the mechanist plays the law creator when he conceives such laws to be self-acting and self-explanatory. It is a great blunder to humanize God, except in the concept of the indwelling thought adjuster. But even that is not so stupid as completely to mechanize the idea of the first great source and center. Does the Paradise Father suffer? I don't know. The Creator's sons most certainly can and sometimes do, even as do mortals. The eternal Son and the infinite Spirit suffer in a modified sense. I think the universal Father does, but I cannot understand how. Perhaps through the personality circuit or through the individuality of the thought adjusters and other bestowals of his eternal nature. He has said of the mortal races, in all your afflictions I am afflicted. He unquestionably experiences a fatherly and sympathetic understanding. He may truly suffer, but I do not comprehend the nature thereof. The infinite and eternal ruler of the universe of universes is power, form, energy, process, pattern, principle, presence, and idealized reality. But he is more, he is personal, he exercises a sovereign will, experiences self-consciousness of divinity, executes the mandates of his creative mind, pursues the satisfaction of the realization of an eternal purpose, and manifests a father's love and affection for his universe children. And all these more personal traits of the Father can be better understood by observing them as they were revealed in the bestowal life of Michael, your creator son. while he was incarnate on Urantia. God the Father loves men. God the Son serves men. God the Spirit inspires the children of the universe to the ever-ascending adventure of finding God the Father by the way of ordained by God the Son through the ministry of the grace of the God Spirit. So next time, we will read God's relation to the universe. Juicy yet? Because this sure is, because this spells out so many things. So if this resonated with you, please hit that like button. Please subscribe, because besides the Lucifer Rebellion, that's a lot of reading. And please make sure, if you know that somebody could use this, please share it. I want to thank everybody who's been helping me out. Let's give some kitty prayers to Morgan that she feels better. She was making noise because she wanted water. With her water bowl is filled to the brim and she makes a flood in my kitchen. I've tried fountains and all kinds of water bowls. She doesn't matter. I don't know what it is for her, that just the filling it makes her feel better, but it's like 1:24 in the morning here. If I had a normal job, I'd be really upset because she paws me when she wants something, or she destroys my meditation library space. But she's a lab. So I hope all of you got something out of that, because it really speaks so heavily on Earth of what's going on. Mind-blowing, right? Please leave me some comments. Remember, if you are someone who is more versed than I am, which I'm not that versed with Urantia or any one of the books that I read, and you want to come on and discuss your perception, don't be shy. I would love to have you on. So that's always an option. I hope all of you have a great week. Prepare. The uncertainty is uncertain, but having more, that when things do run out, or if they run out, or if things get shut off, you're prepared. Just know that, okay? Sending each and every one of you love and light. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.